I stepped through the automatic doors of Megamart, my new employee badge still stiff and shiny against my shirt. The massive store looked different at night, emptier, quieter, with just the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. I checked my watch. 11:45, 15 minutes early for my first overnight shift. I pulled out the folded paper from my pocket, smoothing it against my thigh as I read through the 5 rules again. Emily had handed it to me during orientation earlier that week with an expression I hadn't seen during the rest of our meeting. While she'd been professional and even friendly when explaining benefits and schedules, her face had turned dead serious when she slid this paper across the desk. "These are the night shift rules," she'd said, her voice dropping lower. "Read them now, then keep them with you. Follow them exactly." I'd nodded and smiled, thinking it was just standard safety protocol or loss prevention guidelines, but the rules themselves were odd. Rule number 1. Don't approach any electronics that activate on their own after 2 a.m. Rule number 2. If you hear someone calling for help from a room they shouldn't be in, don't open the door. Rule number 3. The break room is off limits between 4:30 and 4:45 a.m. Rule number 4. Ignore any noises from the storage area after 3 a.m. Rule number 5. If you see a customer after hours, maintain distance and don't engage directly. I folded the paper again and tucked it back into my pocket. Probably just a way to keep night workers alert, I figured. Retail had enough theft and security issues without sleepy employees making it worse. "You must be Parker." I looked up to see a thin man with neatly trimmed black hair standing a few feet away. His Megamart supervisor badge read, Braden Reynolds. His eyes darted around, looking somewhere past my shoulder rather than at my face. "Yeah, first night," I said, extending my hand. He shook it quickly, his palm slightly damp. "I run the stockroom. You'll mostly be on the floor tonight. Let's get you started." As we walked through the silent store, I noticed how the ceiling seemed higher at night, the aisles longer, shadows pooled in corners despite the overhead lighting. "Hey, new guy!" A woman with her black hair pulled into a tight bun waved from behind the customer service desk. Her name tag read, Bella. "Come meet Parker," Braden called to her, his voice echoing slightly in the empty space. Bella came out from behind the counter, her eyes constantly moving, glancing up at the security cameras mounted near the ceiling. She extended her hand with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Welcome to night shift. First time working overnights?" I nodded. "Yeah, figured it would work better with my schedule." Her smile tightened. "Just pay attention, okay? And keep that rule sheet with you." I laughed lightly. "About those rules, they seem kind of strange. Is that some kind of night shift initiation thing?" Bella's eyes widened slightly, and she shot a look at Braden, who had taken a sudden interest in straightening a display of gift cards. "No," she said quietly. "They're not a joke. Take them seriously." Braden cleared his throat. "We should finish the tour. Midnight's coming up." As we walked away, I caught Bella looking nervously at the ceiling cameras again, before returning to her post. Braden showed me the stockroom, employee entrance, and where the night delivery would arrive. His explanations were clipped, practical. When I tried asking about the rules again, he just muttered, "Follow the instructions and you'll be fine," before changing the subject. At midnight, I was alone in aisle 3 with 6 boxes of cereal to unpack. The overhead speakers clicked as the daytime music shut off, leaving only the low hum of freezers and the occasional click of the building settling. I tore open the first box and started arranging Cheerios on the shelf, still thinking about my coworkers' strange behavior. The more I thought about it, the more it seemed like an elaborate prank. New guy works the spooky night shift, veterans act all mysterious, hand him a list of creepy rules. Classic workplace hazing. The store felt different than it had during my daytime orientation. Shadows seemed deeper, distances longer. I could have sworn the ceiling was at least 15 feet high during the day, but now it felt like it stretched up twice that height, the light not quite reaching all the way down. I worked steadily through the first hour, moving from cereals to canned goods in aisle 4. Occasionally I heard Braden moving boxes somewhere in the back of the store, the sound oddly muffled despite the quiet. By 1 in the morning I'd settled into a rhythm: stock, arrange, break down cardboard. The work was simple enough, and my initial uneasiness had faded. Sure, the place felt a little creepy at night, but that was true of any big empty building after hours. I smiled to myself as I stacked cans of tomato sauce. The veteran employees were definitely trying to freak me out with their mysterious behavior and strange rules. Bella constantly checking cameras, Braden avoiding eye contact, Emily's serious tone when handing over that ridiculous list. It was all part of the game. Maybe next week I'd be helping them scare some other new hire. I heard the televisions click on at 2:15 in the morning. The sound echoed through the empty store, that distinctive electronic hum followed by the pop of screens coming to life. I stood frozen in aisle 6, a box of pasta sauce jars in my arms. No one had mentioned anything about the TVs turning on by themselves, but there was that first rule Emily had given me: don't approach self-activating electronics after 2 a.m. I set the box down on the floor and pulled out the folded paper from my pocket. The rules were printed in simple black text on white paper. Nothing fancy, just 5 numbered items that had seemed ridiculous a few hours ago. Rule number 1: do not approach electronics that activate on their own after 2 a.m. I stared at the words, then looked toward the electronics section across the store. The blue glow from the screens cast weird shadows down the neighboring aisles. It was probably just some automatic system test, or maybe Braden was back there checking something. That made sense, right? The TVs were programmed to turn on for inventory or updates or whatever. But if that was true, why make a rule about it? I tucked the paper back into my pocket and picked up my box again. I should keep working. That's what I was here to do. Stock shelves, organize products, ignore weird stuff happening in the electronics department. The glow from the screens kept pulling at my attention as I worked. Each time I glanced that way, the blue light seemed to grow brighter, more insistent. After 10 minutes of trying to focus on my job, I gave up. I needed to see what was happening. Just a quick look. I wouldn't get close, just enough to satisfy my curiosity. I walked down aisle 6 toward the center of the store, then cut across toward electronics. The screens glowed brighter as I approached, all of them showing the same thing. I stopped about 20 feet away, my mouth going dry. Every single television, from the small portable models to the massive wall-mounted displays, showed the interior of Megamart. Not a recording or security feed, but live footage of the store I was standing in. And in the center of every screen was me. But it wasn't me. I mean, it looked exactly like me. Same Megamart uniform, same height, same face, but I was standing still, watching the TVs. The me on the screens was moving around, looking directly at the cameras. I took a step closer, unable to help myself. The figure on the screens, my double, noticed. He turned directly toward the camera, facing me. His mouth moved, forming words I couldn't hear. Then his expression changed to something urgent. He started gesturing wildly, pointing to something off-screen, then making a slashing motion across his throat. My skin went cold. I took another step forward, drawn by a weird compulsion to touch the screens, to somehow communicate with this other version of myself. My fingers were inches from the nearest display when I remembered the rule again. Don't approach electronics that activate on their own after 2 a.m. I jerked my hand back and stumbled backward, nearly tripping over a display stand. The paper in my pocket seemed to burn against my leg. I pulled it out again, reading rule number 1 over and over. The words hadn't changed, but their meaning felt different now. This wasn't a prank or some weird hazing ritual. These rules were here for a reason. I backed away slowly, keeping my eyes on the floor to avoid looking at the screens. As I retreated, I felt a pull, like an invisible thread trying to draw me back toward the electronics section. The TVs were still on. I could see the blue glow reflecting off the polished floor tiles, but I refused to look up. Parker, my name floated through the air, spoken in my own voice through the store speakers. Parker, come back. I need to show you something. I walked faster, moving away from electronics and back toward the grocery section. My own voice followed me, growing more insistent. Parker, please. It's important. You need to see this. I kept walking, focusing on my breathing, on the sound of my footsteps, on anything but that voice, my voice, calling from behind me. By the time I reached aisle 10, the voice had stopped. The blue glow still lingered at the edges of my vision, but I kept my head down and got back to work. I didn't look at the electronics section again. The next hour passed in a blur of stocking shelves and avoiding thoughts about what I'd seen. I moved methodically through the store, finishing the grocery aisles before heading to pharmacy. I was arranging bottles of pain relievers on shelves when I noticed movement near the front of the store. A tall man in a dark coat walked purposefully across the main aisle. He didn't look at me or acknowledge me in any way, just headed straight for the men's restroom and went inside. I watched the door swing shut behind him, then went back to my work. Probably Braden or maybe another night worker I hadn't met yet. A few minutes later, I heard a muffled shout from the direction of the bathroom. Hello? Is anyone out there? I paused, listening. The voice was faint but clear enough. Please, I'm trapped in here. The door won't open. I set down the bottles I was holding and took a few steps toward the restroom. Hello, please, I need help. The voice grew more frantic. The door's stuck and I can't get out. I walked closer, my steps slowing as I approached the bathroom door. The voice sounded desperate, genuinely scared. Is someone there? I can hear you walking. Please help me. I reached for the handle, then stopped. Rule number 2 flashed in my mind. Do not open doors when you hear calls for help coming from the wrong room. Was this the wrong room? The man had gone into the men's restroom. That's where the voice was coming from. But something felt off about it. Please, I've been trapped for hours. Just open the door. I pulled out the rules paper again, reading Rule 2 carefully. The wrong room. What did that mean? The voice grew louder, more desperate. I know you're out there. Why won't you help me? Just open the goddamn door. I took a step back, trying to think. The tall man in the coat had just gone in there a few minutes ago. How could he be trapped for hours? And why would the door suddenly malfunction? Please, I'm begging you. The voice cracked with emotion. Fists pounded against the inside of the door, making it rattle in its frame. Every instinct told me to help, to open the door and let the person out. But the rule was clear. Don't open doors when you hear calls for help from the wrong room. I backed away, each step harder than the last. The pounding on the door grew more violent, the voice more desperate. Don't leave me here. Please, I'll die in here. I turned and walked away, my heart hammering in my chest. The pleas followed me down the aisle, growing increasingly frantic and personal. Parker, I know it's you. Please help me. Don't leave me here with it. Parker. I kept walking, each step feeling like I was dragging lead weights. The voice knew my name now. It was calling specifically to me. I forced myself to return to the pharmacy shelves, picking up the bottles I'd left behind. My hands shook as I arranged them, the desperate cries still echoing from the bathroom. The store felt impossibly quiet after all that commotion. I tried to focus on the simple, repetitive task of stocking shelves, but my thoughts kept drifting back to the man in the dark coat. Had he actually gone into that bathroom? Was he still in there? I wanted to check, but the rules said not to open doors when calls for help came from the wrong room. I wasn't even sure what that meant. Wrong room? Wrong how? But something about the voice's desperation, the way it had escalated from polite to frantic so quickly, made me think I'd made the right call by walking away. After finishing the pharmacy section, I moved to health and beauty, working my way through boxes of shampoo and conditioner. The repetitive motion helped calm my nerves. Open box, check inventory, place on shelf, break down cardboard, repeat. The familiar routine almost made things feel normal again. I'd been so absorbed in my work that I didn't notice Braden until he was standing at the end of the aisle. He emerged from the shadows like he'd been part of them, clipboard in hand, surveying my progress. His eyes swept over the neatly arranged shelves before landing on me. He gave me an approving nod, just a slight dip of his chin, really, but it felt significant, like I'd passed some unspoken test. He didn't mention the bathroom incident or ask why I'd abandoned the pasta sauce in aisle 6. He just checked something off on his clipboard and walked away, his footsteps barely making a sound on the linoleum floor. That small gesture of approval somehow made everything more real. If Braden was satisfied that I'd followed the rules, then the rules mattered. This wasn't a prank or hazing ritual. Something was genuinely wrong with this store at night. Time seemed to drag after that. I kept glancing at my watch, watching the minutes tick by. 3 a.m., 3:30. I moved through the store like a ghost, stocking shelves and organizing displays while trying to ignore how the ceiling seemed to stretch higher above me with each passing hour. By 4 a.m., I'd made my way to the frozen foods section. The buzz of the freezers was oddly comforting, a normal, expected sound in this increasingly strange night. I was loading bags of frozen vegetables when I first heard it, a scratching sound, faint but distinct, coming from the storage area behind me. I paused, a bag of peas halfway to the freezer shelf. The sound came again, more insistent this time, like something dragging across concrete. I slowly placed the bag in the freezer and closed the door, listening. The scratching grew louder, more deliberate. Then it changed, a sharp bang that made me jump. Then another, and another. Whatever was making that noise was getting more aggressive. I reached for the radio clipped to my belt, my finger hovering over the call button. Braden would know what to do. He'd been here longer. He understood what was happening in this place. But then I remembered rule number 4. Do not investigate storage area noises after 3 a.m. My hand dropped away from the radio as another bang echoed from the storage area, this one so violent I could feel the shelves rattle. I swallowed hard and turned back to my cart of frozen vegetables, forcing myself to continue working. The noise escalated. Banging turned to crashing like metal shelves being thrown against walls. I could feel the vibrations through the floor as I mechanically continued stocking frozen peas, corn, and mixed vegetables. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped several bags. Whatever was happening in that storage room sounded like a demolition crew had been let loose. The racket was so loud that I couldn't understand how it wasn't waking up the entire neighborhood. Shelves near the storage area door began to tremble. A box of frozen waffles fell to the floor. I picked it up and put it back, pretending everything was normal. Just another night shift, just restocking freezers while something tore apart the storage room 20 feet away. The hardest part was not looking. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around to at least see if the door was still closed, but I kept my back to it, focusing on the freezer contents with an intensity that made my eyes water. After what felt like hours but was probably only 20 minutes, the noise stopped. Not gradually, but all at once. 1 second, chaos. The next, silence so complete I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. I stayed frozen in place for several long moments, afraid to move. When nothing else happened, I slowly turned around. The storage room door was closed, showing no signs of the violence I'd just heard. No dents, no scratches, not even a scuff mark on the floor. My watch read 4:25 a.m. I'd been in the frozen section for almost half an hour, and my fingers were numb from handling frozen food. I needed a break. Maybe some coffee from the break room vending machine would help warm me up and calm my nerves. I pushed my cart to the side and headed toward the break room, located near the back of the store. As I walked, I pulled out the rules paper again, scanning it quickly. Rule number 3 caught my eye. Do not enter the break room between 4:30 and 4:45 a.m. I checked my watch again, 4:28. I had 2 minutes before the break room would be off limits. Just enough time to grab a drink from the vending machine before this restricted period began. I quickened my pace, rounding the corner to the hallway where the break room was located. The door was closed, but I could see through its small window. I reached for the handle but stopped, my hand suspended in midair. Through the glass, I saw myself sitting at the break table. Not someone who looked like me. Me. An exact double, wearing the same Megamart uniform, with the same employee badge hanging from the pocket. My double was eating what looked like the lunch I'd packed, the turkey sandwich and apple I'd brought and stored in the break room fridge at the start of my shift. I stood frozen, unable to move as I watched this other version of myself take a bite of the sandwich, chew thoughtfully, then reach for the apple. He picked it up, examined it, and polished it against his shirt sleeve, exactly the way I always did. The doppelganger set down the apple and checked his phone, holding it at that slight angle I used to avoid glare on the screen. He scrolled with his thumb, paused to read something, then gave that half-smile I'd seen in my own selfies. Every movement, every gesture was mine. Not similar, identical. The way he tilted his head when reading the phone, the way he absently adjusted his collar with 2 fingers, the specific pattern of bites he took from the sandwich. It wasn't just someone who looked like me. It was me, down to the smallest habit and mannerism. I felt drawn toward the break room door like someone had tied an invisible string around my chest and was pulling me forward. My doppelganger's eyes locked with mine through the small window. The exact copy of me smiled, my own smile, the one where my right cheek lifts slightly higher than my left, and waved me inside with the same casual gesture I use when calling a friend over. My hand reached for the door handle. I wanted to see this thing up close, to understand how something could copy not just my face, but all my little habits. The metal handle felt cool under my fingers as I started to turn it. My watch beeped loudly, 4:30 a.m. The sound snapped me back like a rubber band. I yanked my hand away from the door as if it had burned me, remembering rule number 3. Don't enter the break room between 4:30 and 4:45 a.m. Through the window, I watched my double's face transform. The friendly smile vanished, replaced by a look of pure rage that twisted my features into something I'd never seen in the mirror. Its eyes widened, nostrils flared, and teeth bared in a snarl. It slammed its fists against the glass so hard I thought it might shatter. Bang, bang, bang. I backed away, nearly tripping over my own feet. The thing kept pounding, its movements becoming more frantic. Even through the thick door, I could hear the dull thuds of its fists hitting the glass. I turned and walked quickly away, not quite running, but moving fast enough that anyone watching would know I was scared. I didn't look back until I reached the main sales floor, putting as much distance as possible between me and whatever that thing was in the break room. For the next 45 minutes, I kept busy restocking the cereal aisle, breaking down cardboard boxes, and trying not to think about what I'd just seen. The store felt even more wrong now. The ceiling still too high, the shadows still too deep, but now with the added knowledge that something wearing my face was trapped in the break room. At 5:15 a.m., movement near the front entrance caught my eye. A woman in a blue dress walked into the store. Something about her movements made my skin crawl. She didn't walk normally. Her legs moved in jerky, stiff motions like a wind-up toy with a damaged spring. Her arms swung at odd angles that didn't match her stride. I watched from behind a display of paper towels as she made her way to the household goods section. She picked up a ceramic mug, turned it over in her hands, examined the bottom, and placed it back on the shelf. Then she immediately picked up the exact same mug again, performed the identical inspection, and put it back in the exact same spot. She repeated this sequence 5 times with the same mug, each movement a perfect copy of the one before. Then she moved to a set of dinner plates and did the same thing: pick up, examine, put back, repeat, over and over, like a video on loop. I followed at a distance as she moved through kitchenware, then bedding, then toys, performing the same robotic routine with different items. Pick up, examine, put back. Pick up the same item, examine it the same way, put it back in the same spot. When she reached electronics, she stopped in front of the TV displays that had shown my double earlier. Now they were dark, but she stood perfectly still, facing them. 1 minute passed, 2, 3. She didn't move a muscle, didn't even seem to breathe. I remembered rule number 5, do not directly engage after-hours customers. I kept working, organizing a nearby display of headphones while keeping her in my peripheral vision. My hands shook as I pretended to arrange the headphones, stealing glances at the woman while trying not to look directly at her. She remained frozen in place for several minutes, her body unnaturally still as she faced the dark television screens. I tried to focus on my work. These weren't normal customers. The rules existed for a reason. I needed to keep my head down and just get through to morning. Without warning, the woman's head snapped toward me, not a gradual turn, but a sudden mechanical movement like a security camera pivoting. Though I wasn't looking directly at her, I felt her eyes lock onto me. She started walking in my direction. Her movement had changed completely. Gone were the jerky, repetitive motions. Now she moved with smooth, deliberate purpose, each step bringing her closer to where I stood. Her arms no longer swung stiffly, but hung at her sides as she walked straight toward me. My heart jumped into my throat. I abandoned the headphone display and moved behind a tall rack of video games, putting something solid between us. The woman adjusted her course, still coming directly at me. I moved again, circling around an end cap of discounted electronics. She changed direction again, her eyes never leaving me. The mechanical repetition was gone. Now she moved like a predator that had spotted prey. She picked up speed, walking faster. I moved to another aisle, then another, trying to maintain distance without running. Each time I changed position, she adjusted her path, cutting angles to close the gap between us. Her face remained blank, expressionless, but her movements had become fluid and purposeful. She was getting closer despite my efforts to keep space between us. I remembered rule number 5 and knew with absolute certainty that I couldn't let her reach me. The woman quickened her pace even more, now moving at a brisk walk that bordered on jogging. Her blue dress swayed with each step as she navigated around displays and shelves, always moving directly toward me. "Just browsing, thanks," I said under my breath. Though I knew customer service wasn't going to help me here, I slipped behind a rack of clearance items, ducking low. The woman adjusted her course immediately, like she could sense my location rather than see it. Her movements reminded me of a predator tracking prey, economical, purpose-driven, relentless. I moved faster, no longer pretending to work. Each time I created distance, she quickened her pace. When I cut through the home goods section, she didn't follow my path, but instead took a more direct route to intercept me. My heart was pounding as I realized she was herding me toward the back corner of the store. The stockroom door stood about 20 yards away. I made a break for it, moving as fast as I could without actually running. The woman matched my speed, her blue dress swaying with each step, her arms no longer swinging stiffly but held slightly away from her body like she was ready to grab me. I pushed through the swinging stockroom doors and let them close behind me. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across towers of cardboard boxes and metal shelving. Braden stood near the back wall, clipboard in hand, sorting through a pallet of inventory. He looked up when I entered, his eyes immediately registering something on my face. "She's following me," I said, my voice coming out shakier than I wanted. Braden didn't ask questions. He set his clipboard down and motioned for me to follow him, moving quickly between shelving units toward a small office tucked in the corner of the stockroom. He unlocked the door with a key from his belt, ushered me inside, and locked it behind us. The office was barely larger than a closet, with a desk, computer monitor, and 2 chairs crammed inside. A small window looked out onto the stockroom floor. "After-hours customer?" Braden asked, his voice low. I nodded. Woman in a blue dress. She was doing this weird thing with merchandise, picking up and putting down the same items over and over. Then she just started coming after me. Braden peered through the window. Rule 5, he said simply. We watched through the glass as the stockroom doors swung open. The woman entered, her movements more deliberate now, head swiveling as she scanned the area. She moved between pallets and shelving units, checking each aisle methodically. She can't get in here? I asked. Not this room, Braden said. Some places are safe. The woman paused near a stack of paper towel packages, her head tilting at an impossible angle as she listened. For a moment, she looked directly at our window, and I felt a chill run through me. Don't move, Braden whispered, though we were both already frozen in place. The woman stared at our window for what felt like minutes before continuing her search. She circled the entire stockroom twice, movements growing increasingly agitated with each pass. Finally, she stopped in the center of the room, stood completely still for several seconds, then turned and walked out through the stockroom doors. She'll look for a while longer, Braden said, but she'll give up eventually. What is she? I asked. Braden shook his head. We don't ask those questions. We just follow the rules. We stayed in the office, watching through the window as the woman made several more appearances in the stockroom, each time searching less thoroughly than before. Eventually, she stopped returning altogether. She's gone, Braden said after 20 minutes had passed without a sighting. He checked his watch. Almost 6. We made it. At 6 a.m. exactly, the overhead lights brightened throughout the store. The change was subtle but unmistakable. Shadows retreated, corners became more visible, and the ceiling seemed to lower back to its normal height. The store was transforming back into the ordinary retail space I'd seen during my interview and orientation. Braden unlocked the office door. Day shift will be here soon. You should take a break before heading out. I nodded, still processing everything that had happened. The rules paper felt heavy in my pocket. Not a joke, not hazing. Real rules for real dangers. I made my way to the break room, now safe after 4:45 a.m., and sat at the table where I'd seen my double earlier. I pulled out the rules paper and spread it flat on the table, reading each line again with new understanding. The door opened and Emily walked in, already dressed in her manager's outfit with her badge pinned neatly to her blouse. She didn't seem surprised to find me there. How was your first night? She asked, her tone casual but her eyes watchful. I looked up from the rules. I'll be back tomorrow night, I said. I get it now. This job, it's more than stocking shelves. Emily nodded, a hint of approval crossing her face. You're learning quickly. That's good. The rules, I said, tapping the paper. I thought it was some kind of initiation thing. Most people do, she replied. The ones who don't follow them don't usually make it to a second shift. I carefully folded the paper along its worn creases and slipped it into my wallet instead of my pocket. I'd need easy access to it every night. Get some rest today, Emily said. Night shift takes some adjustment. I stood up, tucking my wallet into my back pocket. The weight of it felt different now, like I was carrying something important, something that would keep me alive.